So let's talk about education and experience in regards to the overarching field of IT, but more specifically programming and design. You see, at some point it became acceptable to decide that college education was more important than experience. I'm not sure when this happened, but it's a problem. I once had a guy who worked for me. He had a master's degree, and he was by far the biggest idiot I've ever met. A degree really doesn't mean much at all to me these days, because of that and numerous other experiences I've had with what current society deems as smart people. Even in hiring for my own studio, I never ask about education, because it isn't relevant. You know what is? Experience. The tech industry has always been led by people who don't have traditional education. They are usually self-taught and they have a drive to create things. I wonder if part of the problem comes from the fact that these companies, a lot of them, are just so massive now. I can almost guarantee that all the jobs you see that require a degree generally shouldn't. They're always handed down from higher-ups with a vague description, handed off to an assistant, and said, hey, I need this job filled. That assistant will then make the job spec, fill it with off-the-wall requirements, and then require a degree. Because, hey, it's a high-paying job, so it probably requires a degree. Which is nonsense, because we're not doctors, we're programmers. There are some jobs where education is important, but programming is not one of them. Being a doctor? Maybe. It doesn't matter how many years of school you had, or how long you went, or what kind of degree you have, how much it costs. If someone who's been doing the same thing in the field for years can do it faster and better than you, experience is always more important here. So let's just say, for the sake of example, that you and I both want to solve a problem. We don't know how to solve it, but we're going to try. So for the sake of this argument, let's say I have no college education, but I've been self-taught for the past 10 years, and I've been working in the field doing programming things for a decade or more. You, on the other hand, fresh out of college, have a bachelor's degree, fancy, but we both try to look up how to solve this problem, and I find the answer and know how to implement it faster than you do. You might find the answer. Maybe. But you have to know what you're looking at. And if you have the experience behind it, that means a lot. Education is great, but if you don't know how to implement things in the real world, it's quite irrelevant, isn't it? Now look, I'm not saying college isn't important for anything. If I have a heart attack, I'm going to want an experienced doctor operating on me. I don't want some random guy off the street who's like, I've done this before, I got it. I don't want that. I want a doctor. But for some professions, including programming, and most things in IT for that matter, college is, at best, a waste of money and time, and at worst, downright destructive for the creative mindset that pushes people into these types of careers. That's not to say that applying for a job that requires experience is much better, because sometimes it's just as frustrating. It's kind of the classic thing of, you need the job to get the experience, but you need the experience to get the job. Granted, that can be mitigated to a degree by just preparing more as an applicant. For example, if you want to get a job as a C++ programmer, you need to be able to show stuff you've done in C++ in your own time. If you can't, that kind of shows a lack of commitment or a lack of creativity. The problem also applies with the companies making these kind of job postings as well. I cannot tell you the number of times I've seen a posting that says you need X number of years in some technology when the technology has literally not existed for that long. It's laughable and frustrating at the same time. Quite frankly, it comes down to the fact that companies need to stop being lazy with their job postings. That's all I've got for today. I'll see you tomorrow.